Imtiaz Cajee is the nephew of Ahmed Timol. He, together with many others, have campaigned tirelessly over the years in search of the truth behind his uncle's death. Imtiaz joins us on the line from Johannesburg now. Good afternoon, Imtiaz, and thank you so much for your time on the SABC News Desk.
It's my pleasure, Kirshni. I'm not from Johannesburg, but actually from Pretoria.
Thank you, Imtiaz. Rodriguez back in court tomorrow. The last time we heard from him, he was really sticking vehemently to the 1972 version. Do you expect he will be more forthcoming than he was at the inquest and feel a little bit more pressure? And what do you want to see happen to Rodriguez and the other accused, Imtiaz, at this juncture?
Look, Kirshni, I think tomorrow it's a pre-trial date hearing. So we're hoping and praying that Judge Monama fast-tracks the processes of the actual court proceedings finally commencing. Because in the last pre-trial hearing, Rodriguez's legal team were arguing for a permanent stay of prosecution. So we're hoping that the technicalities get dealt with as quickly as possible and that a trial date be set so that, formal proceedings can commence. And, from a family perspective, Kirshni, like the Mabelanis, the Khawatis, Modepanis, Monachotlas, Imam Harun and many, many other families want answers. They want closure. And in our particular matter, Rodriguez is living. He was the last person in the room with my uncle before he claims that my uncle had committed suicide. And his version was dismissed by Judge Polimortle at the historical reopening of the inquest last year. So our plea once again goes to him, Kirshni, that he must make full disclosures, make full confessions, and the family is interested in a plea bargain. And if he's not prepared to do so, he must face the full wrath of the law.
Imtiaz, the judge also recommended that the prosecutors consider the roles of two other former security policemen who gave evidence at the reopened inquest, Neville Els and Seth's sons. But the NPA, we've not heard them make any announcement yet. Do you feel there is a robust enough political will in the country to investigate at this point?
It's a very important question, Kirshni, because, more than a year has passed since Judge Polimortle made his ruling that Neville Els and Seth's sons be charged for perjury. And we must not forget that when both of them testified, specifically his son, he claimed that he had never detained any political activist. And within a short period of time, political activists such as Ismail Momoniat, who is Treasury's Deputy Director General, and Jesse Duarte, the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, came out publicly that they were personally and their families tortured and detained by Seth's sons. And yes, very, very painful that a year later, the message from the NPA and the Hawks is that they continue with investigations. And we should not forget that both of them are in the early 80s. And when it's got to ask the question, is there political will on their part to fast-track these particular matters, or are they simply stalling and playing for time so that they pass on and our pleas for justice just collapses?
Imtiaz, I have to ask you this. How do you respond to those who argue that you're actually doing more damage than good to the reconciliatory and nation-building process in South Africa at this juncture? Because all you're doing is opening up a can of worms that will serve to polarize South Africans more than actually bring them together.
So where was the reconciliation? Yes, there was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. How many of the perpetrators made full disclosures, made full confessions? Yes, victims relived the horrors of their past, very, very painfully recollecting what had happened to their loved ones. And the likes of Rodriguez's sons and Els and many, many other perpetrators failed to come forward and apply for amnesty, nor were they subpoenaed. So how can us pursuing quest for justice, pursuing closure for the killings of our loved ones, not be enhancing the nation-building process? And this is precisely the point, that if Rodriguez comes forward and makes full disclosures, even at this late stage, 24 years since the birth of democracy, the families are still willing. So surely we can't be accused of not nation building when perpetrators show no remorse, absolutely no sense of forgiveness, and like Rodriguez, who smiles in front of the cameras at every single court appearance, thinking it's a joke. So surely we can't be accused of not nation building.
Imtiaz, it's often thought about what kind of leader Ahmed Timol would have made today. And all the literature we've read about him points to a high caliber kind of man who was a visionary, transformational and socially cohesive.
Well, certainly, and not forgetting, Krishna, that he was an educator, responsible for the politicizing of many of his students. And his brutal murder simply enhanced political consciousness not within the Indian community, but also within the African, white and colored communities. And this clearly showed that the level of commitment, sacrificing his life for the better of South Africa, clearly shows what kind of a quality of a leader he was. And we have absolutely no doubt that he would have played a pivotal role in building our beloved country.
Imtiaz Cajee, the nephew of Ahmed Timol, joining us on the line from Pretoria there. Thank you so much for your time on the SABC News.